Afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. We just got back from our trip to Chicago last night, and we were there for 4 days. We had a great time. I want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes, and of course, it was our 5-year anniversary as well. Me and the wife had a great time. I'm going to share some photos with you and some little tidbits I snapped and filmed during the trip about the city, just about stuff in general. It was a great time, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. It was a lot of fun. I'm also going to share with you some records I found in several different spots. Got some photos and some fun records to share. As you well know, Chicago is a fantastic city. It's just a great city with so much history, and it's such a big part of the jazz story. And it's always fun to be there with that context and history in mind. So I go down by the riverfront and I show you some of the old buildings down there. And I hope you guys just enjoy our little trip to Chicago. My wife was fantastic, and I'm lucky to have her. She's a great woman. She's my best friend. It's all you can really ask for in this life. Someone to be there and to care, you know. And I got lucky with that. So we've been together 10 years, married for 5. And boy, the years go by fast. It's so nuts. But again, thanks everyone for all the birthday loves and shout outs. And I got some fun stuff to show you. So put your seatbelt on. So me and the wife, we had a fun time. We stayed in one of the western suburbs, and I'll show you a little video footage from that and some pictures from it. A fun little area, kind of rejuvenated. Had a pretty bustling, it seemed like, nightlife and club scene when we went downtown to eat at Lou Malnati's Pizza. Lou Malnati's, but when you say it fast, Lou Malnati, it sounds like Illuminati pizza. We stayed in probably what you would call a McMansion in a suburb out there, and big home, and it was a beautiful place. We of course just kind of stayed there, and we were supposed to stay with my mother-in-law, but that didn't work out, and so we ended up having an Airbnb that first night. Of course, the pizza was fantastic, good pasta, and we had a fun time out there. So I'll show you a little snippet, and we'll move on. What's up, y'all? How we doing? We're walking through Naperville, Chicago. Say hi, wife. Say hi. Hello. We just visited a little Chicago for my birthday, and
our anniversary.
That's right, 5 years of marriage with this lovely lady. How we doing, baby?
We're doing all right.
Mwah. I'll check in with you later. We're gonna get some pizza at Illuminati's. Not Illuminati, but it sounds pretty close, don't it?
Starbucks Reserve.
Right this second, do it. Do it. Do it. Morning, everybody. How we doing? Day 2 in the Big Shy. We're heading into the city. My wife, say hello. She's behind the wheel right now, allowing me to take in some scenery and sights. Looking forward to putting together a little montage video for you guys. New York Knicks, Willis Reed. Hope we'll talk to you soon as we see some city coming up. Peace. So my first stop on this trip, record-wise, was at the Bob's Jazz Record Mart over on the north side of Irving Park. I talked about it in my last Chicago trip. Bob Coaster from Delmark Records, and the great story behind his store and his label, and how it was a downtown location, and then eventually it got kind of downsized and forced out of downtown due to pricing and real estate markets. And he moved. Eventually, Bob passed, and his son's now running it, Bob Jr. And Bob's a great guy, and we had a fun time digging and chatting, and I found some cool stuff there. I'll show you the few 10 inches I found first. The Vanguard Label is a cool label out of New York. They have quite a good body of work of 10-inch LPs, probably 22 or so 10-inch LPs. And this is Buck Clayton meets Ruby Braff, but just called Buck Meets Ruby. And they do a few other things together as well, Buck and Ruby, on Vanguard actually. Pretty big fan of Buck Clayton, a great swing era trumpet player. And of course, Ruby is a fantastic, somewhat New Orleans tradition, but also got a lot of modern And that's the great Vanguard Label. Beautiful little 10-inch. I was happy to find that. And he gave me a nice price on that. I was pretty thrilled about. And then another record I found, I've seen it a few times in auction and made little bids on it. But it's by the great Paul Smith, who was actually a pianist behind Ella Fitzgerald. He has some sessions at Savoy, I think at Capitol. And I think one other label I have him on as well. I think it's Tampa. But this is a 10-inch at Capitol, Liquid Sounds, which is a cool name. There's a list of musicians here. I don't think it does. But I like Paul Smith a lot, so I'm kind of excited to dig into that. And then I showed you volume 2 of this a few weeks ago. And this is volume 3. And volume 3 is, again, Boyd Rayburn. That was the green, the volume 3. And this is, sorry, volume 2 was the green one. This is volume 3. And again, it's got the pink. There's a volume 1 that's red that I haven't collected yet. Old Savoy, 10-inch. And he gave me a nice price on that as well. It's got some interesting cover art. They all have the same cover with a different, same print with different color in the background. So that's a cool little 10-inch I found at Bob's. One of the things I was happy to pull out of the record shelves was this cool record here called Collections on the Intro label, which is an imprint of Aladdin Records. And it's from the early 50s. And I think this might be a fairly old original copy. I'm not positive, but it's a nice old pressing for sure. I have a Japanese pressing of this, but I couldn't resist this chance to get this record with the great Red Norvo, Art Pepper, Joe Morello, Howard Roberts, Ben Tucker, and Jerry Wiggins. So it's a pretty all-star affair on the West Coast. It didn't have a sticker on it, and so he gave it to me for $20. And especially if this is an original, and maybe it's more of a 60s pressing, I'm not sure. I should really look, but it's copyrighted 1951 Intro Records. But this record gets up into the hundreds of dollars, so I was pretty thrilled to find that for a good price. And just to have an original old piece like that. Next was the Lionel Hampton Quintet on Clef. And just a beautiful little Lionel Hampton record. Lionel's one of the true geniuses of jazz. And it's a word people throw around a lot. And there's not a lot of people who really are. Genius requires kind of an effortless innovation. Innovation that struggles isn't genius. Genius is kind of this effortless innovation. It's seeing the next steps. Whether you're Einstein, whether you're Duke Ellington, whether you're Louis Armstrong, genius is not something that should be applied to where most places it is applied. Lionel Hampton was a revelation. He was a genius. He was a guy that really transformed the vibraphone, was a fantastic drummer, fantastic band leader, talent scout, and a great person by all accounts. And he was a great leader of men, upstanding kind of ambassador in the black community, like an Armstrong was, who was more of a proving ground for young black talent into the 50s and 60s and even the 70s than a guy like even Armstrong, who played more with guys his age and Jack Teagardens and Arvell Shaws and those kind of guys. Lionel always had young kids around him, a bit like an Arthur Blakey. And this was on the Clef label. And one side's a little bit more beat up than the other, but it wasn't expensive, so I grabbed it. A fun record I've actually never come across of recent is Peggy Lee Jump for Joy. I love Peggy Lee stuff. I have probably 15, 20 of her albums. It was on Capitol with Nelson Riddle, so it's really kind of a no-brainer. T979 looks, that's in the Capitol discography. That's got to be, 58, 59, 60 in there somewhere, which for me is some of her best era. I really like her pretty much throughout the 50s, honestly. Even her Decca sides are fantastic. But she's cheeky, she's fun, a great personality that really comes out in her performance. I mean, that cheekiness, that naughtiness, that Don't Cross Me. She's got different elements of her that seem really prevalent throughout her playing. A record I was kind of happy to find on Decca, Al Cooper's Savoy Sultans. That's a mouthful. Al Cooper, and not the rock and roll Al Cooper of the 70s. This is Al Cooper's Savoy Sultans, who are a bunch of black guys from Harlem back in the 20s and 30s, and by all accounts, one of the legendary swing bands that gets very overlooked today. From everything that I've read and been told, Scott Baldwin's a big advocate of Al Cooper. They could put Chick Webb and Count Basie out of business. Like, they were just badass. Everything they recorded was early on, late 30s, early 40s. And I believe Grasham Moncour's dad is in that group, and he is. So this is on Decca. It's a collection of what was obviously their 78 recordings from those eras. And I'm excited to jump into this and get a little more feel for the sounds of Harlem in the 30s and the 40s. And if you know Webb, and if you know Basie, and you know Lucky Millen, not Lucky, what's his name? I think his name. I can see his face. Lucky was an Italian guy, but those bands were just so incredible. So I'm looking forward to hearing what's considered to be one of the great unknown secrets of the time. This next album is on the Jubilee label. It's actually a record I have the second cover of already, but it was a cheap Jubilee first pressing with a cool map of Chicago in the background. And it's Dave Remington and a Chicago jazz band. And they're doing a kind of a New Orleans style Dixieland thing, but I always liked his stuff. And this is the original cover. And being in Chicago, buying something called Chicago Jazz for a few bucks was a no-brainer for me. And then I went back into the vocal section for the first time in Bob's store, where I found the Peggy Lee. And I also found this great Al Hibbler with the Ellingtonians. And it's taken from 3 different sessions, 78-inch era sessions. And Hibbler, of course, was one of the legendary singers in Ellington's group in the 40s. I Don't Get Around Much Anymore. Don't Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me. Those are some of my favorite Ellington songs. And I like Al Hibbler. The first record on Argo is an Al Hibbler record. You get some stuff on Decca, Brunswick, Atlantic. I have an Al Hibbler record. A great rich voice. And again, a lot of the Ellington elites are on here. Hodges, Harry Carney, Oscar Pettiford, Max Roach shows up here. Wendell Marshall, Duke Ellington's on a couple tracks. Billy Strayhorn, Charlie Smith, Benny Carter. It's just who's who. Mercer Ellington, Jimmy Hamilton, Juan Tizzle. So a lot, and again, there are different lineups for each session, but Hibbler with Ellington's Man, that's a pretty easy call to make, and it was in nice condition on the Brunswick label. And then, last but not least, a record I've been looking for on Discogs a little bit, never pulled the trigger. Dorothy Donegan's Swingin' Jazz and Hi-Fi. It's on the Regina label, which isn't a label I know too much about. I think it's a goldish imprint. And Dorothy Donegan's a great female piano player, obviously, and the cover's pretty fantastic as well. She has some stuff on, I think it was the one on Bethlehem, a 10-inch? Jubilee. It's on Jubilee. And she also has stuff on Capitol. I'm just a great player. But this one had always kind of eluded me. I love the cover. Scott Baldwin posted it not too long ago. So it was something I kind of wanted to track down and was happy to have done so.